music history is filled with legendary voices whose careers ended far too soon. Behind the hits and sold-out shows lay battles with illnesses that medicine at the time could not defeat. Here are 10 musicians whose lives were claimed by terrible disease. Hit subscribe and never miss another story from music's most powerful history. Number 10, Eazy-E.
Only met Eazy's payday. All of a sudden, Dr. Dre is the G thing, but on his own.
The gangster rap pioneer from Compton helped propel West Coast rap and gangster rap by leading the group NWA and its label, Ruthless Records. Albums like Straight Outta Compton and his debut solo release Easy Does It introduced a raw, unfiltered sound that no one in popular music had heard before. By the early 1990s, he had helped reshape an entire genre from the ground up. Wright was admitted to the intensive care unit at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center on February 24, 1995, after he had been sick for some time, but believed he was suffering from asthma. He was diagnosed with HIV and AIDS. He announced his illness in a public statement on March 16th. On March 26, 1995, 1 month after the initial diagnosis, Eazy-E passed away. Although it had largely been reported that the rapper was 31 years old at the time of his passing, this was the result of the rapper falsifying his date of birth by 1 year. He was in fact 30 years old. His passing occurred at a time when AIDS was still a taboo topic, particularly within the hip-hop community, and his death brought newfound attention to the disease and the importance of early detection and treatment. Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, and Snoop Dogg all mourned his passing publicly in the months that followed. His death marked a profound turning point for West Coast rap and left a void that the genre never truly filled.
Well, I'm Eazy-E, I got bitches galore. You might have a lot of bitches, but I got much more.
Number 9, Tom Fogerty.
In the night, all I have to do is...
As the rhythm guitarist for Creedence Clearwater Revival, Tom Fogerty helped craft some of the most enduring rock anthems of the late 1960s and early 1970s. Songs like Proud Mary, Bad Moon Rising, and Have You Ever Seen the Rain turned the band into one of America's most beloved acts, earning multiple gold and platinum albums along the way. After internal tensions split the group in 1972, Tom pursued a solo career and continued performing. In the early 1980s, he underwent routine back surgery and received a blood transfusion that had not yet been screened for HIV. He contracted the virus and later developed AIDS. The tuberculosis that followed as a complication of the disease claimed his life on September 6, 1990. He was 48 years old. The tragedy felt particularly cruel because Tom had never engaged in any high-risk behavior. He was simply a musician who had routine surgery at a time when blood supply testing was not yet standard practice across the United States. 3 years after Tom's death, Creedence Clearwater Revival was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Artists from John Mellencamp to Bruce Springsteen have cited the band's raw, swampy sound as a defining influence on American rock.
Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before.
Number 8, Karen Carpenter.
Why do birds suddenly appear?
The Carpenters scored 3 #1 singles, 12 top 10 singles, and 20 top 40 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. By 2005, they had reportedly sold more than 100 million copies of records worldwide. Karen's warm contralto dominated the airwaves in the early 1970s with songs like Top of the World, while behind the scenes, her personal life was beginning to crumble as she suffered from anorexia nervosa. Karen Carpenter died in 1983 at the age of 32 from heart failure caused by chronic anorexia nervosa, which she had battled since 1975. An autopsy confirmed the cause as emetine cardiotoxicity resulting from anorexia nervosa, linked to her use of ipecac syrup. Together with Richard, she claimed 3 Grammy Award wins between 1970 and 1976. Karen became the first major celebrity whose death brought eating disorders into the national conversation, fundamentally changing how the medical community and the entertainment industry approached the condition. Her story prompted widespread research into anorexia at a time when the disorder was barely understood by mainstream medicine. Singers from K.D. Lang to Sheryl Crow have spoken about the lasting impact of her voice on how female artists navigate the impossible pressures of life in the spotlight.
We've only just begun to live.
Number 7, Bob Marley.
You see, I remember when...
The reggae icon sold more than 75 million records and turned songs like One Love, Redemption Song, and No Woman No Cry into global anthems of peace and resistance. In July 1977, during a football match in Paris, Bob injured his right toe. What initially appeared to be a minor wound revealed something far more dangerous when doctors examined it. The diagnosis was acral lentiginous melanoma, a rare skin cancer that had developed beneath the toenail. Doctors recommended surgical removal of the toe to prevent the cancer from spreading, but Bob refused, reportedly citing both his Rastafarian beliefs and deep concerns about his ability to continue performing and dancing on stage. Without more aggressive treatment, the cancer spread to his lungs, brain, and liver. Bob continued touring and recording for as long as his body would allow. On May 11, 1981, he passed away at a hospital in Miami at the age of 36. By the time of his death, he weighed just 82 pounds. His final words to his son Ziggy were reported to be, "Money can't buy life." Artists from Bono to Lauryn Hill have described how Bob Marley's music and his story permanently altered the course of popular music around the world.
But tell me, see, I wanna jam it with you.
Number 6. Freddie Mercury.
Just killed a man.
Queen sold more than 300 million albums and filled stadiums across the globe with anthems that defined rock music for an entire generation. Songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, We Are the Champions, and Don't Stop Me Now became cultural touchstones that outlasted every trend that came after them. For years, Freddie kept his private life fiercely guarded, even as speculation about his health grew louder through the late 1980s. On November 23, 1991, he released a brief but devastating public statement confirming he had AIDS. The statement was characteristically dignified and defiant, written in his own words and released through his management team. Less than 24 hours later, on the evening of November 24th, Freddie died at his home in Kensington, London, from bronchial pneumonia brought on by the disease. He was 45 years old. His final album, Innuendo, had already reached #1 in the United Kingdom earlier that year. The 1992 Freddie Mercury tribute concert at Wembley Stadium drew an audience of more than 72,000 people and was broadcast in over 70 countries. His influence continues to shape artists from Adam Lambert to Lady Gaga, who have cited his vocal power and theatrical stagecraft as unmatched. And before we continue, which of these stories hit you the hardest? Did you ever get the chance to see any of these artists perform live? Drop a comment and let us know where in the world you are watching from. Number 5. Minnie Riperton.
Loving you is more than just a dream come true.
With an extraordinary multi-octave vocal range that could soar from deep resonant lows to near impossibly delicate highs, Minnie Riperton delivered one of the most hauntingly beautiful hit songs of the 1970s. Lovin' You, released in 1975, reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and introduced her remarkable voice to millions of listeners who had never heard anything quite like it. She had already recorded with the psychedelic soul group Rotary Connection and worked closely with Stevie Wonder before launching her solo career in earnest. In 1976, at the age of 28, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent a radical mastectomy. Rather than retreating from public life, Minnie chose to speak openly about the disease at a time when such conversations were practically unheard of in the music world. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter presented her with the American Cancer Society's Courage Award at the White House. Her health continued to decline steadily in the months that followed. On July 12, 1979, she passed away at the age of 31. A posthumous album featuring her vocals alongside Michael Jackson and Peabo Bryson was released the following year. Her influence lives on in the soaring upper registers of Mariah Carey, Ariana Grande, and countless other singers who followed in her wake.
You are one.
Number 4. Frank Zappa. Over the course of a career that refused every category and defied every expectation, Frank Zappa released more than 60 albums, spanning rock, jazz, classical composition, and avant-garde experimentation. He produced and controlled every element of his vast output with obsessive precision, building one of the most intellectually challenging and diverse catalogs in the entire history of recorded music. In 1991, at the age of 50, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer that had already progressed well beyond the point of surgical intervention. Doctors deemed it inoperable. True to his character, Frank refused to slow down. He continued composing and recording from his home studio in the Hollywood Hills, working on projects until his body could no longer keep pace with his mind. On December 4, 1993, he died at age 52. His final major composition, Civilization Phase III, was completed before his passing and released posthumously in 1995. In 1997, Zappa was posthumously honored with the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, a recognition long overdue for an artist who had challenged the music industry at every turn for 3 decades. Experimental artists from Ween to Primus, and even the classical composer Pierre Boulez, have acknowledged the extraordinary depth of his influence on music that refuses to stay inside the lines.
I don't know much about dancing, that's why I got this song. One of my legs is shorter than the other and both my feet's too long.
Number 3. Eric Carr. After joining Kiss in 1980 as the replacement for original drummer Peter Criss, Eric Carr helped power the band through some of its most commercially successful years. He appeared on albums including Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, and Animalize, bringing an explosive, hard-driving energy to the drum kit that fans embraced immediately. In early 1991, Carr was diagnosed with heart cancer, a condition so extraordinarily rare that primary cardiac tumors account for fewer than 1 in every 2,000 autopsies performed. Surgeons removed a malignant tumor from his heart, and he underwent intensive chemotherapy for cancer that had spread to his lungs. The treatment was grueling, and complications escalated rapidly. Later that year, he suffered an aneurysm and a brain hemorrhage. On November 24, 1991, Eric Carr passed away at the age of 41. In a grim and remarkable coincidence, Freddie Mercury died the very same day. At the time of his death, the band was deep in sessions for what would become the Revenge album, released posthumously in May 1992. Eric never got to hear it finished. Bandmates Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons have spoken many times about the quiet determination and warmth that Eric brought to Kiss during its most demanding decade. Number 2. Nat King Cole. The silky baritone that made Nat King Cole one of the most beloved entertainers of the 20th century became one of the most recognizable voices in all of American music history. He earned 28 gold records over the course of his career and became the first African American to host his own national television variety show, breaking barriers at a time when such achievements came at enormous personal and professional cost. Cole was also a lifelong heavy smoker, a habit that those closest to him tried repeatedly and unsuccessfully to persuade him to abandon. On December 6, 1964, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Despite surgery to remove his entire left lung and multiple rounds of cobalt radiation therapy, the disease advanced relentlessly. On February 15, 1965, Nat King Cole died at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California. He was 45 years old. His final album, Love, had already climbed into the top 10 on the Billboard charts before his death. Frank Sinatra publicly described his passing as an immeasurable loss to American music. Tony Bennett, who counted Nat among his greatest influences, spoke about that incomparable voice in nearly every major interview of his career. His recordings continue to move new listeners more than 60 years after he was gone.
Mona Lisa, men have named you.
Number 1. Ian Dury.
In the deserts of Sudan and the gardens.
At the age of 7, Ian Dury contracted polio during one of the last major outbreaks to sweep through Britain, leaving him with a withered left arm and partial paralysis down his left side. He grew up in a world that expected very little from him, and he spent the rest of his life proving it decisively wrong. By the late 1970s, backed by the Blockheads, Ian had become one of the most distinctive and irreverent voices in British punk and new wave, recording Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, which reached number 1 on the UK singles chart in January 1979 and stayed there for 5 weeks. His defiant anthem, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, became a rallying cry that captured a generation's restlessness with precision and wit. He turned his physical challenges into part of his artistic identity, performing with ferocious energy night after night despite the limitations his illness had left behind. In the late 1990s, Ian was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. He continued recording and performing for as long as he was physically able, releasing the album Mr. Love Pants in 1998 to strong critical praise. On March 27, 2000, Ian Dury passed away at the age of 57. His story remains one of music's most remarkable testaments to the power of resilience, a man who overcame one terrible disease to build a life of pure, uncompromising creative fire.
Because I chose to play the fool in a six-piece band. First night nerves, every one night stand.